Federal law entitles all employees to a safe workplace. A safe working environment is defined as one that is free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees. In this training, you are exposed to common OSHA-recognized injury, illness, and fatality categories. You will also explore examples of other sources of harm that may not immediately fall under OSHA's General Duty Clause. Based on trends from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, a typical year sees around 5,000 fatal occupational injuries and over 2.7 million non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses across private industries. Have you or someone you know been involved in a work-related incident? Everyone plays a part in ensuring workplace safety, but the primary responsibility rests with the employer. Be sure to ask your employer about safety resources and potential risk factors related to your work to learn how best to ensure your safety and health. For every task in all jobs, there are potential hazards. Does your job expose you to potential traumatic injuries? Are you working near or with chemical or biohazards? Does your place of work lack emergency procedures or fire protection? Is the equipment that you use in your career properly maintained? And is your body protected from strain and injury during operation? Think about your own working environment as you go through this training. Illness as a workplace hazard has come to the forefront for many career fields in recent years. Disease due to viruses is a recognized health hazard that results in time away from work, long-term health effects, and is linked to certain fatalities. Increased use of personal protective equipment has become the norm, and exposure to airborne and other hazards is a key concern in the design and use of workspaces. Beyond exposure to germs and viruses, when working with or near chemicals, special caution must also be exercised. In order to support this, employers are required to provide access to safety data sheets for all hazardous chemicals with which an employee might come into contact. Ask yourself, what are some potential sources of illness at your workplace? Do you know and have everything you need to be protected? Illness is just one possible result of exposure to pathogens and chemicals. Injury and death are also potential outcomes. The visible effects of poor work and insufficient safety practices are physical trauma and severe injury. At times, these incidents lead to death. More often, however, they instead cause days off from work, dismemberment, loss of sight or hearing, hospitalization, and partial or total disability. The risks of each workplace differ, but they are always present. Ask yourself, do you work with equipment that could cause sudden and severe trauma or injury? Do you work around caustic, flammable, explosive, or otherwise hazardous materials? Common scenarios include falls, slips, electrical and powered equipment hazards, becoming trapped or engulfed in a material, or otherwise losing access to oxygen, getting crushed by, struck, or caught between objects, and exposure to temperature extremes. Take a moment to think like a safety inspector. What could possibly go wrong? If you can recognize a hazard, you can prepare for it. You may have heard the saying, work smarter, not harder. Whether you work at a desk, out in the field, with a trowel in your hand or a spatula, career longevity and your long-term health, not to mention avoiding days away from work right now, depend on proper interaction with your workspace and environment. Ergonomics and work practices that avoid unnecessary strain on your body are key to preventing musculoskeletal injuries. Interacting with your work environment goes beyond strains and sprains due to repetitive activities or overreaching. A properly designed workplace will help avoid accidentally flipping switches, pressing buttons, spilling liquids, and other secondary hazard sources. Since hazardous lifting, repetitive tasks, and awkward postures are typically well recognized for established tasks, OSHA's General Duty Clause may apply. However, it is in your best interest as an employee to recognize and report when an activity is causing undue strain or stress on your body. After all, workstations and equipment are often standardized to some average. Your employer should help you identify ways to improve how you interact with your workspace. Employee mental health is another important and all-encompassing concern. Mental health may be linked to underlying conditions unique to the employee, but a worker's mental health might also be influenced by exposure to harassment and other forms of workplace violence. Psychological and physical harm are often interwoven, and physical injuries may be a direct consequence of emotional strain and external non-physical hazards. Within that context, threats, intimidation, and other potential sources of workplace violence pose health and safety risks. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission provides protection for workers against hostile work environments. Now that you are aware of some of the major areas of concern surrounding workplace safety, it is time to take a deliberate approach to hazard identification and risk mitigation. The basic unit of task safety preparation is the Job Hazard Analysis, or JHA. Sometimes known as Job Safety Analysis, a job hazard analysis breaks down work activities into individual tasks or steps, and then identifies both potential hazards and ways to protect against or prevent these hazards. Consider the generic task of assembling a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Even a basic task like this has potentially fatal health hazards. What happens if you or one of your employees is allergic to peanut butter and goes into anaphylactic shock? If a scenario such as this holds dangers, how much more so tasks outside of cold food preparation? Think back to the last task you completed at work. What hazards were present? How could you prevent injury, illness, or other harm posed by these hazards? Do you need more information, personal protective equipment, or support to keep yourself safe while completing this task? Since you are new to this workplace, you might be wondering what role you play in workplace safety. In general, it is your responsibility to carry out your work in accordance with recognized safe practices. Although it is up to your employer to ensure you are aware of your responsibilities, provide you access to relevant information, and provide protection from recognized hazards, it is crucial that you are able to identify and, at the least, to report on unsafe work conditions and practices. Your work environment should also allow for this without fear of retaliation. In some cases, employees are able to work from home or from an alternative location some or all of the time. Others use an employer-provided vehicle that is parked at home. It is important to know your employer's policies and guidelines on what constitutes a work-related injury, as this may depend on your unique circumstances. If you are or plan to become a supervisor, you should remember that although your immediate liability is to recognize and mitigate risks to death or serious physical harm, the workplace is a complex environment where external and internal factors may make some hazards more difficult to recognize and control. It is crucial for you to investigate risks and safe practices relevant to your industry. The lives and well-beings of yourself and others depends on it. Always remember, if you recognize or suspect a hazard of any type, stop your work when it is safe to do so and communicate your concern with your supervisor. Safeguard yourself and your fellow employees. Take advantage of our other training titles to learn more about job hazards specific to your field of work. Go to OSHA.gov/workers for a comprehensive list of basic rights and frequently asked questions. There are workplace hazards associated with every role and task. This training introduced you to common hazards and was meant to empower you to be aware of your rights and responsibilities as an employee toward promoting a safe and healthy work environment.